Well, we have to start to do that to offer that for our subscribers, so we start bringing people in. So we definitely need to offer Dogecoin to our subscribers. Yeah.
What's going on, Random Rabbit people? This is podcast number 14. We are hitting those double digits. Happy Thursday. You made it past hump day. And if you didn't hump, well, that's why you're on Thursday. And so,
Because if you had sex, time stopped for you and you died.
whoa, it
So
wasn't even about the sex.
Welcome to
Holy crap.
Thursday.
if you didn't hump, really,
That could really mean anything.
Then you
That could
didn't
mean
Wednesday.
anything.
please, Josh, give me your definition of the word to hump.
And so today on today's
Mhm.
podcast,
Yeah.
we'll be covering a few topics regarding cryptocurrency and how miners might be taking advantage of your computer and you don't even know it. And you're making other people money when you could be making that money yourself. Other than that, we'll also be talking about Taiwan. We'll be talking about some tax rules, and we're just going to have a good time. Welcome, Random Rabbit Wyatt, Random Rabbit Jeremy. Thank you to coming to the podcast. Hey! You guys are the only people who really
I'll
show
be here
up.
every day, so
Okay,
I'm just here.
and with that, we have the Thursday vibes. You guys, we're just going to get right through this.
So
Topic
close to the weekend.
Topic number 1. Go ahead and take it away, Wyatt. Tell us about Taiwan.
Mhm. So, topic number 1 is Taiwan lashes out at Beijing after the Chinese president Xi Jinping pledges to the complete reunification of the country. So, the Taiwan is an island, right about separated from China by about like I think 100 miles straight. And even though China's never actually had any control over Taiwan, they historically view Taiwan as a runaway province that should have been brought under the Chinese kind of general control here, under what they call a one China policy. And over the last year, the Chinese government has already breached the Taiwanese airspace with multiple warplanes. So to show like you belong to us and you're not going to do anything about it. And obviously, Taiwan doesn't have anywhere near the size of the military to repel the mainland China. So China views this as a historical mission and the common aspiration of the Chinese people. And when he gave this speech, a lot of people were cheering. A lot of people liked what they heard. So there's definitely some public support for this. And it's something to watch because this has always been really a flashpoint. The word is used, right? The flashpoint between the United States and China for any potential conflict. The United States has grown much closer to Taiwan for different industries, as well as just the fact that they can do trade, and that it's kind of a democratically run, self-governed island that's separate from China. So depending on how China plays this, I imagine that we could see some type of minor scuffle, and hopefully like ending in type of talks and negotiations. But it definitely seems that when China says things like this, what they say, like we're going to unify you, that's part of the mission. It kind of sends a very clear message. We've seen other leaders do this in the past, reclaiming lands that they believe belong to them from other either independently ruled regions or from other people's countries. Russia did it recently over the last couple of years. So definitely something to watch, especially if the United States or you're in China. And we'll have to keep an eye on that. But definitely is a bold statement from China, and the Taiwan and the people in Taiwan do not like that very much.
Yeah, no, I know people who are from Taiwan. I know people who are from China. Both of them say that they're from different countries. They definitely define as different individuals, but they definitely know who's kind of pushing the buttons in this area, and that's definitely China. China is the powerhouse. Taiwan is smaller than China. This has been a I know it's been a topic that's been, I believe, among Chinese and Taiwanese people, and I know there was a type of rivalry there, and there's definitely pride within their own country to say, no, we're not Chinese, no, we're not Taiwanese. It's actually offensive to define one or the other, but it's also because that kind of shows like the political stance. It shows the pride in their territories, and this is definitely going to be ruffling feathers as it proceeds, and it'll be interesting. I mean, China's a powerhouse. We'll see where they take it from there.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see how this goes. All right. So, all right, up next after that, we're going to go to so the global. We've talked about this before, but the global minimum tax rate for corporations has been agreed upon by about 130 nations. So there is no specific number that has been set, though we know in America that Joe Biden has pushed for 15%. And out of all the countries that agreed, they represent about 90% of global GDP. So a sizable part of the global market is agreeing to a global minimum tax rate. Not a specific number yet, but the talks are moving forward. Um, the This presents both a framework to eliminate digital services taxes, which was very largely aimed at American tech companies in that were doing business in foreign countries, as well as the main purpose, which is to create and stop this incentive for people to try to find new tax havens and move their businesses around from country to country and go offshore and try to find business somewhere else. It kind of makes all the companies, no matter where you go, pay a minimum tax rate. So it effectively, everyone's paying their fair share, and it also kind of stops people from hunting down those new places to go. So they stay put in their countries. They feel more secure in their country because they know that wherever they go, there's going to be a minimum tax rate no matter what. Not going to be able to find somewhere there's like very little tax. So we'll see how that plays out. But the major finance leaders and central bankers are expected to meet later this month to discuss more details in terms of how all of this has been working out. And this is really all is a very key point in Joe Biden's policy for the foreign policy for the middle class, um, which the idea I guess is to kind of keep companies from leaving the United States or doing business other places or headquartering themselves in other places so that it keeps them here and so they pay more taxes. Um, but I don't really know if that's going to work the same way that he thinks it does because if he wants 15% tax, we're already at 21%, which was shot down from 35%. So I don't really know how that works and how that benefits the middle class. I think we have a lot of other policy issues, but it definitely sounds nice. So it's how he's going to sell it. But the there are a few holdouts, right? And a few notable holdouts here: Ireland, Hungary, Estonia, Nigeria, Kenya, Peru, and Sri Lanka. So these are countries that are holding out. And by holding out, I mean that they're not really for the minimum tax rate, and they're willing to discuss and try to negotiate for a level they think is fair. Because there are a lot of countries, especially these specific ones in general, that use their low tax rate as a tool to attract foreign investment, where they feel that by setting a minimum tax rate globally, it will hurt their ability to say, hey, look, we have lower taxes here. You should bring your investments over here, right? It's a tool they use to bring in capital. So definitely some more conversations to be had, but I imagine that we will be seeing more about this in the next year or so. A lot of treaties have to be ratified, a lot of things have to be signed. It's going to be definitely a long process before all this said and done. But you're definitely looking at a different chapter in finance now, where we're looking at all companies and holding everyone accountable, and we'll see how that really works out. Because in general, I find that most tax efforts, the 15% minimum tax doesn't help anyone in the United States because our companies already pay nothing. I mean, 20% in taxes is a very low amount. We've had 35% since before the 2000s. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how this deals out. I imagine it's going to take a while. Lots of meetings, lots of discussions, but we'll be bringing up more points on this as more relevant stuff occurs. But this was just a big update, kind of because we talked about it before, so I just wanted to keep everyone updated. The news article came out today saying 130 nations are on board, so talks are moving forward. Things are getting a little more serious in regards to this minimum global tax or global minimum tax, GMT as it's called. Yeah, and and one of the main things is that this targets the new age of technology, right? The older tax, now that we have businesses that can do business all over the world and online and using data, it's a different world. So you're seeing a new chapter in finance of addressing now the new type of company that exists, not just the traditional companies that existed before.
Well, hopefully the little guys don't get taxed as much as the big guys need to be taxed. But
Yeah, honestly, it should be a bell curve. It should be the companies that make more money should be taxed more, or the little guys should just be taxed less. It should be an even playing field as what I'm thinking of, but more of a bell
But
curve shape.
not a bell curve, because a bell curve would mean the most profitable companies pay just as much as the least profitable companies, and everybody in the middle pays the most at the median.
Well, I'm saying that everyone should pay a certain amount according to their
Like income taxes.
to income taxes.
I agree with that. I think I think that would be smart. If your company makes stupid amounts of money, you shouldn't pay the same tax rate as a mom and pop shop or something equivalent. I mean, I think that having a tax rate of 20% is like, there are people who pay more in taxes, individuals who pay more taxes than entire companies do. I I'm not an economist, so there's clearly a lot of stuff I don't understand there, but uh, based on the numbers,
And the thing is that most of these large corporations are able to hide their money. Smaller businesses aren't able to have the utilization of being able to hide their money off to offshore accounts and everything like that. So there's a lot more to take into account when it comes to large corporations.
right, but I think more importantly for big corporations, because individual wealthy investors usually use those tax havens, companies don't as much. And this is supposed to kind of help fight that and kind of keep people like, you're just going to stay where you are because everyone's going to tax you these rates. But I think with big companies, the biggest fear is not necessarily hiding their money, it's how they can use their money. Companies can buy lobbyists. So not only do they pay lower taxes, but then they can pay to have people literally influence legislation and fight for laws that are more favorable to not tax them or not make them pay as much or give them more leeway and wiggle room within their industries that consumers have no way of touching. Not to mention the ability to have very wealthy people within their companies finance political campaigns. So they can mobilize their capital and almost weaponize it in a way that gives them much more power to help affect their business in different silos and different sectors and industries than consumers who really just, you make X amount of money, you pay this much tax. If you write things off and go to charity, you can make deductions, and then just the math equation. Companies have a lot more, more aggressive tactics they can do
Yeah,
to
they
make
lobby
their
more.
operating. Yeah,
It's
they can make
what
their
it
operations
is.
easier to do.
They go up to bat more than the little guy. The little guy doesn't even have time to even know what lobbying is. The big guys are just like, well, let me get some tax breaks. Let me start lobbying for some stuff,
Right.
and that's how they get larger tax breaks. So
Exactly. So definitely interesting. We'll be covering this as it goes on, but I definitely think corporations should pay more in taxes because, you know, they say it hurts the ability to pay the lower workers, but the executives get paid just fine. And if you think about, the executives are equally as important as the employees, because with brains without operation is nothing, and operation without brains is nothing. So if they're both equally important components, why does one get paid 20, 30, 40 times in magnitude greater than the people who actually make the business do the things that it's supposed to do? I'm not saying that executives should be paid a lot. I'm saying that we can definitely rescale our understanding of pay scales, and it would offer more benefits to workers that would make them feel more at home, and not like, they slave away 40, 50 hours a week, and executives go out to nice dinners and they make the big plays, but they don't have to physically break their back to work so hard. They live a different style of life. So not to mention their compensation packages and options, and you hit this much in revenue, we'll give you tens and 20s of millions of dollars worth of options contracts. Like, okay. So,
oh yeah, I knew executives that would be penny pinchers just to say they've saved more money this quarter, and
right.
they would do anything and everything, including cutting like people's wages and cutting off workers and everything like that, in order to just say we saved this much money
I hit
through
my
my
target.
regime.
Give me
Exactly.
my reward for doing
Exactly.
a good
Give me
job.
my bonus. Give me my bonus because I did better than all the other sectors of this company. So, incentivization for these corporations needs to be fixed ethically, morally, and definitely the tax overall field just needs to be more fair.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be coming back to this. Taxes are going to be a talking point for the rest of humanity as we run out of money to pay for the things that we borrowed for in the future.
Absolutely. And
All right.
with that, we go to the U.S. deficit.
Wow.
Deficit. So the U.S.
Deficit.
the U.S. deficit is it totals the U.S. deficit total $3 trillion in fiscal 2021. There's about 3.13 trillion in 2020. And the current forecast by the Congressional Budget Office, or the CBO, shows that at $3 trillion for fiscal 2021 is 33% up from the previous forecasts. That accounts for about 13.5% of GDP. That's about how big that is. second largest level since 1945, exceeded only by our raw 2020 spending and just what, like $4 to $6 trillion we spent on the pandemic, which really didn't do anything anyway, because we're all going back to work and we're still paying out tons and tons of money, and people still don't have jobs, and a lot of people still couldn't pay their rent. So I don't really know what it solved necessarily. I think it was really just a botched job. But the government debt currently sits at about $28.3 trillion, and everyone who says that like everyone owns our debt and we're owned by the people, the public owns $22.2 trillion of that debt. That's us. That's what's been borrowed against our future. So there's maybe $6 trillion that's broken up among China, Japan, and a few other major players, of which Japan owns more than China. So we own most of that debt. They borrowed against us, and they will continue to do so. So anybody that thinks that other countries own us, we have screwed. The government has been screwing the middle class since they found out they could just deficit spend to fund whatever they wanted. But however, they did upgrade the GDP estimates. Are supposed to increase the GDP is supposed to increase about 7.4% by the end of 2021, with roughly 2.8% on average a year through 2025. So we did get some growth, which is definitely a factor of there's lots more money in the market. We pumped a lot of liquidity out there. Lots of people have been spending. So we could definitely see growth this year and maybe continued expansion of the economy, regardless of how the stock market moves, right? That's obviously a forecast into the future for the next 3 years, 3 or 4 years. So we'll see how that goes. But definitely going to be a good, strong year. I think, there's no doubt among anyone that I've seen or talked to or watched or read about that thinks that 2021 is going to be a bad year. What comes afterwards is questionable, but this year is probably going to be a good bull run.
We'll see, because the housing market's going to take a hit. I mean, the CDC just extended the eviction moratorium out.
Right. They gave it for one more month, but they're not going to be able to keep doing that because there are lawsuits currently being brought to the Supreme Court. Is dropped the last one that was by small landlords saying, hey, please stop this. But the problem is that it can't continue forever, because at some point you're going to have to decide between, all these people that are just at home not paying their rent, and I understand that, but there's people who own these properties and they're not being able to pay their bills, and so they may not be able to own this land anymore. You're pushing them out of the market by effectively saying we're not paying you. So it really you have to balance these things. So I definitely don't think people should be evicted. But as I get to my next point, there is some evidence that proves that we might need to really start tapering off all this aid, because people are just getting comfortable from living on it and saying, like, I'm just going to use it, because there are definitely people who need it, but there are definitely people who are just like, this is more convenient. Mm-hmm. Like, as a contractor myself, I could have made more money on unemployment through COVID. I could have been unemployed and been making probably at least a solid $500 or $600 more a month easily without having to do anything. But I have a job, so I didn't want to do that. But there are definitely incentives for amounts of money that you can make, and they'll just give it to you. And for a lot of people, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, a lot of people are not wanting to go back to work because of it.
And so that leads us into our next point, which is the jobless claims hit a new pandemic low. So they dropped about 51,000 to 364,000. That is initial jobless claims. So that's continuing about a month-long downtrend here. It's still above pre-pandemic levels, but to give you an estimate here, pre-pandemic levels, on March 15th, 2020, that level was at 256,000. We're at about 364. So we are definitely getting closer. It's definitely getting tight. The labor market's definitely people are starting to go back to work. Right? We're starting to see a bit of a relaxation here. Employers added about 706,000 jobs, and unemployment rate fell to about 5.6. So we're trending in the right direction. We're still about 6.6 million jobs smaller than pre-pandemic, but that's not crazy considering how many businesses went out, how many people got fired and furloughed, not to mention how many people don't want to go back to work currently, and how many people maybe can't go back to work because they have to worry about their children, they have to worry about taking care of things at home. So it's definitely not crazy to think that way, but we're definitely going in the right direction. And interesting, the so-called continuing claims, right? The benefits distributed that continue on for people that are already on these benefits. The program remains high at about 14.7 million, but only about 3.2 million of those people were from regular state programs, people who just regularly needed this aid. The rest are pretty much all from pandemic-related relief. So you're looking at the majority of beneficiaries of people who are receiving money are still receiving it through the COVID relief plans and are still reeling from that afterwards. An analysis by Jeffries LLC, The Economist, indicates that the enhanced federal benefits have had an impact on unemployment rolls. The backup in continuing claims was driven entirely by states remaining on enhanced benefits until September, a Jefferies report said. Since mid-May, claims are down 12.6% in early expiration states and just 3.4% in September expiration states. So this stuff is going to expire normally in September, right? So you're seeing that states that did early, which is you would expect, is you're not really getting as much money in unemployment anymore, so you are forced to go out and find a job, which is what's something that we need because we've had a supply side shortage. We have like 10 million open jobs and nobody's filling them. That's the opposite. There's the crisis when you don't have enough work, and there's the crisis when you don't have enough workers, right? Demand side and then supply side. So you have to find a balance. So I think it is good that a lot of states are reeling this back. It is coming in September. So for people who need the money, I definitely make some plans to move forward, but we can't just keep pushing things off because we just don't have the money for it. We really, really don't. It really is supposed to be reserved for people who really, really need it. And not to mention, we already have tax credits coming down that start this month, a $3,000 per child tax credits, stimulus payments for people that have kids and people that are in families. Like, there's a lot of stuff that Joe Biden's administration is pushing down, a lot more money that's coming in that's also being factored into the growth factors of the next couple of years of GDP. So, but we need to find a balance because we can't just we can't just keep pumping money out. We're going to run out and we're going to have to keep borrowing to take more. And if what's happening in the market with repo and reverse repo is true, we're running out of collateral in the market anyway. Liquidity will dry up eventually. And then we're going to have a problem where we're going to have to just keep deficit spending, which is great until we have an actual problem we have to deal with and we don't have the money to do it. And I think we just got off a pretty big problem. So it's definitely a balance that needs to be struck. But I think we're moving in the right direction. And I think the markets are starting to look a little better. I think the economy is starting to look a little bit stronger. That doesn't say anything about the long-term effects of the market, but it definitely looks like our economy is it's not crippled anymore. That's why we need to wean ourselves off all these programs because we're getting stronger. Like America's picking itself back up. We don't need to keep pumping it full of cash necessarily that we don't have.
Well, that's the thing. The retail investors are the ones that started pumping it full of cash during the pandemic. So
retail investors still only make up 10% of the total market volume, exactly. 15% during the pandemic. But I'm not talking about the market. I'm talking about the economy. Retail investors are the ones pumping the money into the economy. In fact, retail investors are arguably taking money out of the economy because a lot of people using stimulus checks and just becoming investors are taking that money and just pumping it and playing with it on the stock market. But we're seeing a lot of people with there's plenty of jobs out there. We're seeing companies that are offering raises. Southwest Airlines is offering double pay through the holiday because they don't want any more shortages. So people are willing to pay. You have a lot of power as an employee. So definitely use that to get yourself fair pay and get yourself more money. But we're definitely seeing a lot more money in the economy. I don't think the doom and gloom is there as much as we think there is. I think we're still headed for a contraction and a realigning of all this stuff because of the debt, because of how hot our markets have been. But I think the everyday person, I think the market is generally improving. The United States is not, it's not sinking.
Do you foresee taxes being higher because of this?
What do you mean? Because of entitlements? Absolutely. This is the joke about entitlements. They all sound really good in the beginning and they find a way to pay for it, but entitlements last forever. We have a problem with Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're already saying within the next 20, 30 years, we might not have enough money to pay for that anymore. The benefits aren't there. We have a retirement crisis. So many of our seniors have like an average of savings of $80,000. Okay. And Social Security is not going to be paying out very much for them because there isn't as much money in there. And many, many more people are retiring. This was a conversation we had pre-pandemic 2-3 years before we even had COVID. Then all this shit happened and we're spending all this money. We're adding more entitlements. We're saying we're going to keep these child credits going. We're going to pay stimulus checks to families. We're going to increase the amount of spending we have for individual companies and to giving people aid. There's a whole list of, I don't remember them off the top of my head. But if all this stuff goes through, it starts out great, but it exists forever. And entitlements, they don't go away. No politician's going to take entitlements away. Just look at Obamacare, how big it's gotten. The Supreme Court has shot it down, 2 or 3 times now. Not saying that I'm opposed to Obamacare. I mean, I am opposed to parts of it and the way some of it worked. But you see just objectively the difficulty in removing it once many people are using it. It gets bigger. It gets more people. And over time, Congress, the politicians, they want to include more people. They want everybody to get involved. They want to show everybody, come on in and enjoy this. We want to expand coverage. How do you pay for that? Eventually, you're going to have to start raising taxes because you can't just keep raising taxes on the rich. You just can't keep doing that. It's not going to pay for it. Eventually, the taxes will come to the middle class. And that is the big joke with all this stuff. In the long term, we in the middle class will have to pay more in taxes, whether it's a Republican or it's a Democrat. We're always going to get shafted, okay? Always, the middle class is always going to get shafted. Even if it takes 5 to 10 years to work its way through, eventually those entitlements will cost so much money that we will have to pay up. it's impossible. Okay, because we're taking out so much debt. Like in my mind, it's like it's like we don't care about the next 20 to 30 years. We just care about right now, get it all in, get our legacies, pile it all in, and then, well, whatever happens, happens. But when we get to the point where there's nothing left, it's not going to be, whatever. It's going to be, shit. Like we have a problem. We have a real problem. I think that within our lifetime, we may see a point when maybe not prolonged, the end of the United States, obviously not, but I think we may see harder times than people think are coming. Because we're at the end of we've been on a very big, long bull market here. It's been burning red hot. We've been spending lots of money. We have lots of entitlements coming in line. We have lots of spending coming on top of the debt we already have. It can't last forever. I don't care what anybody says. It can't last forever. There is not an infinite supply. It will have to be addressed. And I worry that we will just keep pushing it until it's too late, and then the address has to happen, and then it just off a cliff. Just like stock market's crashing. Companies don't have enough money, liquidity crisis, debt crisis, default crisis.
Who are they going to go to once that all starts happening?
Well, your idea is that when you have those problems, you're going to go to,
the
banks are going to have to their collateral, which we've done stress tests to show that we can survive enormous amounts of losses. So that's what gives me comfort solely that there is enough liquidity to take those hits. But the problem is that after a while, you're going to go back to the Fed. You're going to need more money. You're going to go to the government and say, you need to give us more collateral. You need to put out more bonds. You need to borrow more money. But the problem is that we're trying to spend money to advance a bunch of things and fix a bunch of things and create entitlements for the future, all at the same time after spending $6 trillion to deal with the pandemic. So it's just like, it doesn't exist. Like money just doesn't exist. Jenny Yellen's like, suspend the debt ceiling again. Like, let's just keep on going. And I understand why. How else do you solve the problem? You can't just say, all right, everyone stop. Your lives are about to get tougher. But at some point, that's what's going to happen to people, to everyone, to myself even included. Like, life is going to get harder because eventually you're going to have to pay back the things you owe. And if we don't deal with it, eventually, I don't know the time. I don't know enough about it to know like the exact timing, but I know that when you just keep taking out more and more debt and spending more and more money, just think about it. If you had credit cards, you were spending lots of debt and spending lots of money. Eventually, you'd have to stop spending money, right? You'd have to start saving. Well, imagine that on a countrywide scale. Yeah, not pretty.
Definitely not something I'm looking forward to.
No, definitely not. So we'll see. But over Joe Biden was supposed to be the centrist, non-Donald Trump president, and now it's the far-leaning left. We don't even need the Republicans. We'll just go through reconciliation to pass all of our bills, and we're going to hold out for this, that, and the other thing. It's not about it's just like it's like an ocean. Every time we go one to the other, we just rock back and forth more and more violently than we did before. And we're at a point where the only solutions we think of are big spending and large political leaps. No one cares about coming together. No one cares about conversing. No one cares about working out the problems. Just spend, and keep everybody happy. Eventually, everyone's going to be unhappy one day, and then you're not going to be able to spend your way out of it. And it's going to be a rude awakening, I think. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we figure it out in a nice, sane way, and cooler heads and smarter people prevail. But
not the case.
Not the most hopeful. I'm a realist, so when I see all these numbers, happened before. There's no reason it can't happen again.
Hey, your optimism's showing.
Yeah, right. If we had crashes before, we had depressions before, there's no reason it can't happen again. Anyone that thinks it can't happen again, you need to wake up. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but people say I'm very pessimistic. Like, no, I'm not pessimistic. I'm a realist. And I look at what happens. I look at a precedent, and I say, if it's possible to happen before, why can't it happen again? Because America is so great, and we have all this money. That's not an answer to the question.
Interesting.
Good enough.
Well, let's.
We'll keep covering this topic as it comes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and the last one here, last one, that topic that I'll be leading here is the FTC votes to broaden its agency's mandate. So today, the FTC voted in a 3-2 vote along party lines, the 3 Democrats versus the 2 Republicans. 2 Republicans said nay, 3 Democrats said yay, to repealing the 2015 agency policy that effectively blocked the FTC from using its authority to challenge unfair practices unless the behavior was already a violation of other antitrust laws. So what does that mean? Well, as I've been saying, our laws don't necessarily cover the things we need to discuss, right? The way these companies need to be affected. So the FTC today said, yeah, we understand that. So we're going to repeal that so we give ourselves a broader mandate, right? More wide-ranging ability for us to actually go after these companies, look for things that aren't traditionally antitrust violating and aren't traditional monopoly violating. It gives us the ability to go after other things. It gives us more power. Now, Lena Khan, right, the FTC chairwoman that was appointed by Biden, we talked about yesterday. She wants to return the FTC to its original mandate of Congress based on the Fair Trade Commission Act of 1914, of policing unfair practices that aren't covered by other laws. So some critics of what this happened here have said that this is an introduction of new uncertainty into these laws, that there are going to be new sweeping powers in the hands of only a handful of elected officials, and that there's going to be more political influence into enforcement, and it's going to weaken U.S. innovation. Those are all very valid points because you have you're going to shake up the laws the way they are, so we don't exactly know what the new guidance is going to be. And these sweeping powers are giving the FTC more government control, a form of bigger government to actually enact outside of a strict set of guidelines, and they are able to write new guidelines, and more political influence, which I think is something we definitely have to watch out for. I completely agree with that. So I think we need to have people watching these regulators and making sure that everything is done ethically. But I obviously am a proponent of the FTC kind of stepping out of its shell there and actually taking on tech. Tech presents a new challenge. So I definitely think we need a new interpretation, but we need to do it in a way that isn't some subjective, give them all the power. 150%. We should take these critics at face value, and we should look at this and make sure we do this the right way. But the people that are supporting this say that the consumer welfare standard, which is what is currently referred to, which deals with price increases or limiting consumer choices, that alone limits the agency from looking for other anti-competitive behaviors that don't necessarily fit specifically into that realm, which I do also agree with, because there are ways that companies can be anti-competitive and companies could endanger consumers or other parts of the market without necessarily hurting consumers or limiting their choices, as we see with Amazon and Facebook and Google and all these companies who basically give everything to their clients almost for free. Tons of choice, doesn't hurt the prices, even helps the partners in some degree. But then Amazon's also buying up ownership for the companies, and Facebook owns all your data, and there's no data rights. So these are things that we need to address, and we need new, more progressive interpretations of the laws if we're going to deal with a progressive right agency or an industry, right? That's the only way these things are going to work. The laws have to match up with it. So, and the tech industry obviously heavily opposed this. They said, well, this is ridiculous because they're obviously going to come after us. Well, no shit. I think that's pretty obvious. That's why the FTC is doing this. So it's definitely setting up for a big fight. But Gary Shapiro, the president of the Consumer Technology Association, defended the limited focus, and I thought these were interesting points. It enables the U.S. world-leading innovations by focusing on what's best for consumers rather than legacy businesses, which I do agree with, because we shouldn't just keep businesses alive for the sake of keeping business alive. And I don't think that's what we should do. But I think we should address problems, and I don't think it will stifle innovation because other people will have the chance to innovate. Think about it this way. How do you compete with Amazon in e-commerce? How? You can try and carve out your own thin little niche slice, but you're never going to be able to fight Amazon. The economies of scale, the size is just, it's like a giant impregnable wall. You know what I mean? There does present some competition in there. And the consumer welfare standard grounds competition policy in objective facts and evidence, not subjective or political terms. I also agree with that. That's why we have to do this properly. We can't just give power to the FTC and say, do whatever you want, and it allows political influence to do things that are on an agenda. So that's what I saw about regulators and conflicts of interest. We need to make sure this is done by the book properly and someone's watching them. So we need more watchdog groups that are going to watch the FTC and make sure they're not breaking any rules and they're not getting influenced in properly. So it's definitely going to be something to watch. And other legal observers believe that Congress set this up so that it could, right, that the FTC could have this type of flexibility in its interpretation, which is what the framers of the Constitution and all the documents said. Anyone that thinks that just because the Constitution was read one way, we should stick to that forever is ridiculous. The Supreme Court overturns things all the time, changes policies. These frameworks were meant to be amended. They were meant to be progressive because it has to be, because the world it was, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 50 years ago, 20 years ago is not the same world that it is today, and it will be in 20, 50, or 100 years. So I think it's a good step in the right direction, but we do have to be careful and we do have to monitor it, because there is possibility for there to be injected subjective political agendas and an undue amount of power. So we have to make sure things are happening that are still going to be fair within the system. But I think it is a good step in the right direction, because the FTC should have more power, because I believe tech companies are getting too big and are having too much power that isn't checked by the current laws we have in place.
Boom. Yeah, that was a lot of information.
Yeah, that was good. Agreed.
Man.
Yeah.
Federal
So we're definitely gonna
Trading
keep
Commission.
What'd you say?
Federal Trading Commission, FTC.
Federal Trade Commission.
Wow.
As we said, we're definitely going to be following because this is going to be big. Because depending on these rulings, could materially affect the composition of these companies and the strategies of companies in the tech space in the future, as well as what the FTC has the power to control. So a lot of big precedents could be set over the next 6 to 8 months to a year. A lot of rulings could be passed over the next 3 to 4 years. So this is going to be important to watch. This could change the way some things work. We're in an age of big changes. There are definitely big changes coming over the next decade. Things are going to change.
Would
The world's
this
going to look very different?
Would this affect some of the stock prices of these big tech companies?
Not right now. I don't think they will, because remember, markets are already pricing in what they think going forward. So they've been there's been a lot of investigations and antitrust suits around the world. So that stuff's already been baked into the price over and over again, and people are already kind of adding that to their speculation because they know this is going on. I don't think it will until the FTC starts to take more specific action or starts to target and look into things more specifically. You'll see traders start to change their forecast on prices or how they feel about it. Maybe you'll see some small short-term losses or some little bit of volatility as a result. But I don't think anything serious yet because we don't know what's going to happen. There's still a ton to go. Right, this is just the beginning phases of all this, but it's just a strong setup. So there's definitely movements are being taken. Like there's clear objectives here. The FTC wants to take on big tech. Big tech does not want to fall to the FTC. A fight, I think, is being set up. So it's something that will affect the markets in time. I don't know how much it'll do it now, but definitely something the people in the market, especially the tech space, will be watching.
All right, sounds like yeah, definitely an ongoing topic. We'll keep following as time goes by. With that, I think we're going to enter our first break. And as we're doing that, guys, I just want to remind you, this right here is our YouTube page. If for any reason you miss any of our live podcasts, jump on this page, and what we do is we divide up the video so that you don't have to go through the whole podcast. Let's say you're just interested in financial topics. There's a whole financial channel and playlist on that. If you're just interested in whatever crypto we're talking about, there's a channel for that. Channel for economics, channel for politics, and a channel for just the times where we have our random Sunday fun days. And
we also have our any debates that we have. We like to separate those. We even have the gaming stuff, which is just me or Josh playing random video games if you want to take a break from the heaviness of reality and just watch things get shot or people jump on platforms and light fun stuff.
And so yeah, some of our top videos are our podcasts. So you guys are watching our podcast. Thank you so much. You guys aren't even taking the time to watch the small little bits. You guys just want the big meal, which we definitely understand. That's why we encourage you guys to come onto our live show, because we want to answer all your questions. This show is for you guys, not for us.
Right, if we're doing stuff live and you want to ask us about it, that's the time. You can always leave comments and we'll respond to you. But live is when we can just riff, for long periods of time. So you get that good energy.
Talk about being triggered. You throw a question towards Wyatt and Jeremy and they could just go at it like little chihuahuas. Like,
well, Josh is all about cryptocurrency. Wyatt has a master's in financial analytics. I have my master's in financial engineering, and we can answer questions to the best of our ability.
You forgot my master's in Google.
Oh, yes.
Google search.
Google search.
And YouTube Academy. Don't drop my credentials.
Don't forget
my
about
goodness.
that certificate. Don't belittle Josh's achievements. He is.
No.
I am just as qualified as you guys. I follow Reddit.
Josh, I personally think you're more qualified than me on everything, or I default to you on everything.
Well, it's about
and
time.
That's how we get to our breaks.
We will be right back, guys. One bit, and we'll come back with crypto. What's going on, Random Rabbit? We are back from our break, and we're now going to be covering our crypto section. And starting off our crypto section is going to be Bitcoin miners flock to an upstate New York town for cheap energy, and then it gets complicated. Now, there's so many reasons right now it could get complicated. I feel like we've discussed it in previous podcasts, but everybody has to understand how energy consumption works in your current county, in your current state, and that is a lot of your energy is made same day as is ready to use, and if it's not used, it's lost. And so with that being said, Bitcoin miners went over and flocked to a part of New York that had really low energy consumption. It was so low that it was, I guess, enough of a push for people to jump in. Well, here's the problem. 15% of their energy, 10 to 15% of their energy supply then went over into mining. Now, that's not just a certain region. That's not just a certain, like, let's say a city or area. What started to happen is that it consumed so much of its current energy consumption in that surrounding area that it then had to broaden itself and start consuming energy from the larger metropolis side. And that's where it started creating the problem, is that they aren't ready for this mass energy consumption. And it's arguably to say that I don't think anybody is really ready for the mass of miners going in and just taking over an energy supply. We are currently striving towards increasing renewable energy, and that's the right direction to go. But that's only because supply and demand is going to increase. And currently, the increase is creating a deficit in the regular consumer to be able to just have regular prices. You have to imagine, these counties and cities that had the low, cheap energy, what do you think their bill jumped up to? It jumped up to a rate that was just unprecedented and definitely unexpected. So all of this is pointing back to crypto miners, and I'm surprised we didn't see this coming out of Texas first, because I know we talked about Texas taking on miners, and we destroyed the whole topic and ability for them even to think about using Texas. Yeah, in a happy, perfect world where energy is just unlimited, which it is, by the way, but not in our current use of technology. We're creating ourselves a mini black hole, and so this is an area to be solved as we look, move forward into the future. Any comments on that, boys?
I believe the moment that we actually get into sustainable energy, it's going to either be cheaper or taken advantage of, because we are in a capitalist society and corporations just want money. So in actuality, do you believe that free energy is going to come anytime soon? No, especially with miners.
I also think that it's important to note that when the main driver of progress is profit, the main driver of progress is not sustainability.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something you have to know. Even sustainable fishing, sustainable energy, renewable they're advertising slogans. You have to remember that. If the purpose of developing a service or technology is to profit, then the primary goal is not sustainability of the ecosystem, sustainability of the environment, sustainability of the market. If that is the mantra, eventually that entire process is sustainable. So you make that is sustainable in a process that is in itself unsustainable because you're doing it for solely the profit, it's like an oxymoron. You can't create sustainable things when you only care about profit, because you're not thinking about how it integrates. You're more caring about the speed of progress and how much money you can make on that speed than you do about actually changing things. That's why most drugs that are developed, people aren't going around the world solving hunger and figuring out people's water supply issues and treating illnesses. They only treat illnesses when it becomes apparent that there's a market big enough to make them profit for it. Else, what's the point? And I understand that things are expensive, but the number of things that are brought to market are done so because there's a market to buy them, not because people want to, make some great change. So
I mean,
they also don't think
the energy companies aren't complaining about this. They're just giving out bigger bills. They're making more money.
Yeah.
Well, that's because they charge more energy. If they have to put in 20% more capacity, they're going to increase their cost by X amount. They have to raise their prices, otherwise they go under.
And that's a trick. That's actually a trick statement, because energy companies aren't always fully utilizing their maximum potential of energy output. They're, obviously during the summer and winters, according to however energy is used in the household, but they're never hitting that 100%. So, what the article is not saying is that, certain cities are losing power because certain cities are utilizing more power. The energy is still there.
Right. So if you efficiently allocate, but that's the thing, it's about efficient allocation. People aren't saying, I'll set up my mining rig in a city that doesn't use 20% of power so that I can efficiently max out the grid, which in and of itself is dangerous because there's a reason sometimes they don't allow it to go so high. So they have that reserve capacity and the ability to do so in the event of a surge. But in addition to that, yes, I agree. If they were to find the substations and grids where they were the least taxed, that would be the way of doing it. But that's not what they do. They go and find the cheapest price because, again, they're nothing more than a business. They need to profit more than they cost, more than they spend. So they're going to go for the cheap energy because that's their big input, right? One of their biggest inputs besides the supplies of technology to actually mine it is the power needed to run that supply. So I agree. If you were efficiently looking for ways to do this, there might be a way to find a balance. But I also think that there's a reason some places don't max out their capacity so that they have the ability in the event surge to handle that. Because if you're maxed out and then there's a surge or a demand, grids go down. And grids going down is infinitely worse than having excess capacity that's not used when it comes to something that people need every single day, right? It's not like a want, like, oh, I'd like electricity. Most people need it every day for almost everything that they do.
Yeah, and so that's why they give varying rates throughout the day. If it's during the daytime in which people are at work, the energy rate of use for consumption is much lower than when 5 p.m. hits and everyone comes home. And then they have the energy rate higher than it was during the day. So that's just corporations for you. Same thing with medicine, like insulin cost is $50. They sell it to people for $350. So that's just cost of business. Do you ever think cancer is going to go out of business? No, because there's such a large area of research that cancer is never going to be solved. Because if it is, people are going to be out of business, and they're not going to be happy about that.
You know what's funny about renewable energy? You know why companies don't build products that last forever? Because they want you to buy more. If you create renewable energy and then don't need it to build any more energy, then you're done. You've maxed out your capacity. We have officially powered the entire world. It doesn't need to grow anymore. No way. No way. Absolutely no way.
I feel like this...
at least not in our lifetime.
Yeah, I feel like this caveats into the next topic, which is probably how crypto miners are, in a way, efficiently mining Bitcoin. And by efficiently, I mean they are using your computer in order to mine cryptocurrency. So there has been an influx of malware that has been popping up on people's computers. Now, you as an individual citizen...
The mob is efficient because it has no friction in collecting its money.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell me how these PC gamers are getting hacked.
Guys, no longer are you worried about your data being stolen. No. Now it's your CPU. Now it's your graphics card. Now it's your computer slowing down and your internet and electricity bill going up. That is because there is being malware put onto your computer so that they are mining Bitcoin directly from you, transferring it to their own crypto wallet and cashing out. They're saying that over $2 million worth of this Bitcoin cryptocurrency has been mined through this process.
And it's important to note how. The way this malware works is it's literally called by its name.
Krakenosh.
Krakenosh. What does that mean? It is malware that exists in cracked versions of games. So some of the popular ones, NBA 2K19, GTA 5, Far Cry 5, The Sims 4. If you get a cracked version of this game that you might torrent or download online, you could potentially open up your computer to this malware, which they can install because they cracked it. So somebody cracked it, they put a file in there, they changed the configurations, therefore they have some leeway. If you don't know 100% what you're looking at, you may just run it, those files, execute in your system, then it creates this back subroutine that quietly just takes up little bits of your processing power, sometimes little bits more at a time that you don't notice. So if you're not really that savvy about your computer or you have lots of RAM or memory, they'll be able to do this easily, and that's why they're targeting gaming PCs, because gaming PCs have the GPUs and the CPUs and all that power, the ability to absorb all that processing demand.
And don't you just love the feature on Xbox that has the auto update, never shut off feature? I bet they utilize that feature as well to ensure that there is always CPU power running.
Well, so that's funny you mentioned that because they actually
yeah.
turn off your updates on your computer so that it prevents any type of malware security updates. They also disable your security suite from your computer so that it's not detecting this malware using up all of this extra CPU.
And it's important to know that these are on PCs and it's done through these cracked games.
Not
it's
Macs.
Not like you can just get
Did you say not Macs? You said not Macs. I heard it.
This is not on Macs.
Wow.
You're right. So if you want to sell out,
guys,
cheap,
go buy a Mac.
You can save yourself from the crypto bullies. But what's important to note is this isn't just like anywhere you go, right? It's on specifically cracked games that you can get for free. So a game that you normally have to pay for, or that you get through a certified site, you like mostly. I imagine these people are torrenting them, right? Torrenting cracked versions of games, and they're like, oh, I got all the things for free. I don't have to pay for anything. There's a virus. They've done about $2 million, and it's in Monero, which is the cryptocurrency currently used, or at least being most heavily used and concentrated in criminal activity.
So, wow, $2 million. It's not bad.
So far, that's what they've been able to calculate so far in total crypto, total Monero.
Torrenting. Do your research if you're gonna torrent.
Right. If you torrent things, make sure you if you're torrenting something, make sure you know what you're torrenting. Make sure you check it. Especially when you get cracked games, because cracked games include lots of source files. Usually, a cracked file you need to literally move from one part of directory into another part to have the game run. That's where the viruses are being held, in those special cracked files that you literally have to execute and put into your game store, and that are extra than the core running pieces. So that's why it's so hard to find them in games, because you generally don't know what you're looking at if you open up your source file for games. There's a lot of stuff in there. But for music and videos, you only really have one file. So it's a little bit safer, but still, always be smart.
So, yeah, I mean, the questions to ask are, is your electric bill a little bit higher than it normally would be just running your normal games? 2, do you feel like your computer is slowing down more than it has been normally? And this is aside from your computer just naturally degrading over time. This is, maybe some significant glitches, some significant lag in your game. But those are just small indicators to just, I don't know, ask yourself the question, like, could my PC be vulnerable? Did I potentially download one of these Krakonosh malware?
Also, you should familiarize yourself with, in your task
Activity
manager
monitor.
or your activity monitor if you're on a Mac. You should familiarize yourself with the programs and applications that are running. So you should, be able to get a good sense of what's happening in there. So you'll be able to see what's, use the filters to determine what's using the most memory. And if something doesn't look right, it looks weird, definitely look it up, definitely look into it. See if it's a recently installed program, see if you can find traces of it. Right? Pay attention to those things. Every now and then, I always just look up every now and then what's going on my computer. You should always do that. If you own something, you should
running 100% of CPU, you better look into it.
Yeah,
150%. Like, you hear your machine like screaming at you, like, "Hey, help me!" And you're still playing your game because you love your game.
If it sounds like a jet engine, it sounds like a jet engine is turning on. Question whether your computer is going to take off and try to jump off your desktop.
Yeah, exactly.
With that, we're going to go into a term called cup and handle. Cup with handle. Now, you guys are the stock experts. Please educate me a little bit on this.
Well, that's a specific strategy, the cup and handle. There are so many strategies like head and shoulders, and there could be bullish and bearish ones. But you know what? Let me look. Cup and handle pattern.
So,
Technical indicator where the price movement of a security resembles a cup followed by a downward trending price pattern. So if you can find it on Google, you'll be able to find a beautiful picture of it going up, and then it swoops into a cup formation, goes down a little bit, and then spikes up. And that is a cup and handle. So that's a bullish sign, and Josh is going to go further into what is happening and where he's seeing this cup and handle pattern.
Now, if we look at Bitcoin, are we looking at potential cup and handle? this is the ultimate question. Right now, we've been going through a dip. We're coming out of a sideways market, and what it's looking at is it looks as though the market's just breathing. It's regulating between, and Bitcoin has only been regulating between itself between highs and lows of about 5%. That is not bad at all. Most crypto will increase and decrease with like a 10% with a daily, rise or drop of a 5 to 10% through the day. Bitcoin has only been doing about 5%. And so with this chart, I'm looking at a 1 week chart, and from here, and this is just
that is not a cup and handle. The cup and
it's
handle
a
has to
very
have a same
rough.
Like it literally draws this, but it comes up to roughly the same level. Like this one is down, and then a little turn, then a further down. So what you're looking at is higher highs. I mean, you're looking at lower highs and lower lows. It almost looks like, and then you have this kind of activity here on the end for the last 2-3 days. It looks like it goes up, drops, goes up, drops. But in that case, you have higher highs and higher lows. So you might be looking at a small uptrend, but I don't think that.
That's where the question comes to be: is it a potential cup with handle, or is this just going to be indicators of a bear market? A cup and handle would be an indicator of a bull market. Where is this price going to be going? Now, we've kept a resistance above $30,000. I believe we tested that today, and we actually did not go below $30,000. Let's see, in the last day. Yeah, so
sure this looks more like
the resistance is at 40,005. So we look like, as of June 15th, the previous high was 40,001. So its ceiling right now is 40,005. If it breaks that ceiling, then it's going to be a bullish momentum. But as of right now, it seems like it's testing it. It's trying to go. It looks to me that it's going in a more downward direction at this moment. Knowing Bitcoin, it could go either way. But
this looks more like a head and shoulders.
Right here it does. Right here looks like a head and shoulders.
I mean, no, if you look at it over the course of look at it daily over the course of the last 2 years, besides looking like a gigantic bubble, it also looks like a gigantic head and shoulders. Like when you talk about bear and bull markets, they're long-term things. You don't have like a bear market today and a bull market tomorrow. That's not a bear or bull market.
Correct.
Like,
I'm talking about indicators. Yeah.
Right. But the indicators, like the thing about indicators, most of them are lagging. Some are coincidental. Very few are ever leading, and accuracy in leading indicators is always brought into question. But the other thing you have to note is, like, if you're looking at it day to day, you're not gonna find these patterns unless you're talking about a day trade. And then you say, oh, there's a bullish run, and you have to hit a target. If you're looking at it more from a medium to longer term over the whole year, you see a pretty well-defined behavior here where it tests a resistance level of just under 41.5. Not both, and the other one peak over towards the beginning of January there, January 10th. You're looking at about 42, and you're looking at a peak on June 14th, 15th of about 41.5. So you're seeing defined levels here, and you're seeing a peak up at 60 with this kind of rounded bell curve shape. So you're seeing a little more resistance on the tail end here, like it doesn't want to give up, but you're still seeing pretty decent drops. And in the long term, it doesn't actually look very bullish. It looks like it might go sideways for a while, but I don't see in the markets any reasons why it's going to just shoot up.
No,
I see it more as a head and shoulders. I see that its previous low at its first shoulder was 31,000, and its previous low as of this moment was again a little higher than 31,000.
Yeah, we don't hit 32.90.
It didn't want to break that floor. It didn't want to break that floor downward. So I see that there's potential for it to go up, but again, it's at this moment that it's in limbo. It could go either which way.
Now, a lot of social media is saying that Ethereum is going to take over Bitcoin. And if you're looking at this in a long term, and people are saying, hey, look at the reflection of the price of Bitcoin in 5 to 10 years, this could absolutely be the price of Ethereum. If you're looking at it in those terms, currently Ethereum is at a fantastic price to get into. And if it's a technology that's going to overtake Bitcoin, you kind of just have to reflect on that.
Well, I mean, the blockchain might, but the coin itself is still like that. Is just Ethereum has a giant run up to what 4,400 and then tanked and never made it up past $3,000 again. So, but I guess I
Which
think the whole crypto
everything
market-
right now is still on its same pattern of, you know, about a loss of 50% of what we were looking at 3 months ago. Both of them are still looking at the same thing.
Yeah,
And
April
so,
15th.
yeah, this one ran up
Bitcoin at
to
63,000.
yeah 60,000. Ethereum went up to, you know, close to 4,000. They're still following the same pattern. They're still on mark. When and if we see a recovery of Bitcoin, I definitely see a recovery in Ethereum following that, and then, you know, altcoins following that. That's just been a normal pattern.
Sure, maybe the
You
whole
know,
market moves together.
I wanna see who the heck, what time frame they're looking at where they're saying a cup and handle for this Bitcoin.
It's probably within the
Um,
last two. If you look at it, look, if you look at it
It's
from June 14th,
from January.
you see there's a down and there's an uptrend here up until the third. Like it goes down, bottoms out around I don't know the 21st, another one around the 25th, and then comes back up, but it never quite comes back into this handle shape. You see something similar. You see it drop, and you see it try to get up higher. But if you look at it, also you can basically draw almost a straight line down from almost from April 15th to May 9th down to June 15th and then June 29th. It's a little bit of a skewed curve there. You have to kind of play around a little bit, but you can draw almost a straight line down from that point all the way until today.
Yeah.
So,
They're just looking at the potential cup being formed at the moment, and we'll see if that's actually going to come to fruition.
With that
Right.
being said, we are going to do a crypto highlight, and it's going to be the one and only XRP. XRP is currently still under a lawsuit with the SEC, and if you're trying to purchase this under any type of U.S. exchange, you might have difficulty doing that. If you are still trying to get in on it, I personally took the adventure one night because it was around 3 in the morning. I was just like, you know what? If I don't try to, you know, at least get in on this, I don't know when I will. And that's because it was hitting 60 cents, and I didn't believe it was ever going to drop that low again. And for anybody who's wondering where to purchase this, go ahead and find out. Google it. Good luck. I'm not going to give you the name in which I put it on, only because
but this is the dangerous thing about buying that is if the government decides that they were fraudulent and then the lawsuit goes against them, if you own it, they could severely hurt you. That's why when companies go under SEC regulations or audits or things like that, their stock prices take huge hits because the markets immediately start repricing it and saying, like, oh shit, maybe they had an accounting error or fraud. Oh shit, maybe they lied about something and these numbers aren't real. And when that happens, that's like, you know, that could be a death knell to a company for at least a good period of time in the market.
no,
So if you're gonna buy Ripple, buy at your own risk.
no, I know the technology behind Ripple isn't in question. It's how it's defined, right?
Right, but you're not when
Is
you
it
buy
a
Ripple, you're not
currency?
buying.
Is it a
SEC
currency? Is it an
lawsuit.
asset? Is it a utility? And
Because
that's
they were
what's in
selling it
question.
as a currency. That's why they're in a lawsuit.
Right, but that's what I'm saying is if but it still could, the government can still rule against it and try to find some other reason to restrict it in some other way. That's why the exchanges aren't trading because it's like a poison pill. Coinbase doesn't want you to hold it because if something bad happens to it, Coinbase doesn't want to have to be the one to figure out how to deal with that and get all its clients to get rid of it and reimburse everybody and, you know, the whole 9 yards that comes with adjusting your account.
Now, those are the what ifs of if it fails. What if it succeeds? Now we're seeing
It'll just be
some top highs
Ripple to $3
earlier in the year where it hit about $1.70. It's currently sitting at 60 cents. If that's a risk tolerance that you'd like to take, message me in the DMs if you're actually interested in where I purchased and where I was able to purchase it. The reason I want to say it on the air is because the actual validity of the exchange that I purchased it on is still in question, and until I'm able to personally pull it out and put it into my own personal wallet, which there's a slight delay, I'm going to say that's a pretty risky area to be placing your money in. So
if you're gonna gamble on one of the 7,500 coins that exist, try and gamble on one that isn't under a heavy lawsuit and doesn't have to be bought on an exchange that not be legit.
But
There's many other ways to
if you
speculate.
have
But
a
Ripple,
high risk
man.
tolerance, and believe Ripple's
just like
going to
everyone
go
else.
up and beat the SEC in this lawsuit,
Ripple has
hit
hype.
Josh up.
Ripple has-
Ripple has so
Rip-
much
Ripple has-
momentum.
Ripple has hype, but it's just like all the other coins. If you're looking for short-term gains, but you'll have a lot of headwinds.
And
to
you have to
compete
admit, if it does come out of this lawsuit in the green, that price is
against.
gonna
I have no
jump.
I have no idea what it could possibly be.
That jump, we're looking. Oh man, the price is definitely. It's gonna test $3, and it's gonna go farther than that if it does. And so that's one
that's Josh's prediction.
I just want to
Test
highlight
$3
it.
and go higher than that.
I just want to highlight that one. This one was one that I was hoping to be a long term, and then freaking lawsuit. Other than that, let's go into what's exciting. It's a billionaire race to space. This has absolutely nothing to do with crypto, but has everything to do with what's ridiculous in this world. And so, if you have $1 billion,
Other than crypto, of course.
crypto makes sense, and this is just throwing money at space. Which is actually
about
the
the
same thing.
publicity.
That's funny.
Think about the publicity. Go ahead, tell everybody what you're talking about first.
For this one. All right, so we have Virgin Galactic. I believe he's the owner of Virgin Galactic, isn't he? Richard Branson.
Sir Richard Branson is the head of the
Sir
Virgin Group.
Richard Branson.
The Virgin Group owns a 25% stake in Virgin Galactic. It owns some percentage stake in Virgin Orbit, and Virgin Orbit is the one specifically doing all these test flights. So it's all part of a conglomerate. It's not like Virgin Galactic does all these things. That's why you have to be careful, because he founded Virgin Galactic.
There we
and
go,
maintained a 25% stake in it.
All right.
That's why they say it. Yeah.
So he is the founder of it, and I mean, come on, if your company is putting up another billionaire who's just going to be bragging about being up in space, why not you jump on the same rocket? And I feel like that's the story that we're heating up right now. We're about to see bragging rights among billionaires of which people have been up in space, which people haven't. This can start off just a huge publicity of who's able to even get up to space. I'm not sure how this is going to benefit the small investor, but
the whole point is that Richard Branson wants to go up first by July 11th, beating Bezos by a week or two.
9 days.
In doing so, it might get my 9 days. In this case, it would give Virgin Orbit more credibility, because the first person to go to space, it's a publicity thing. Like, our company went up there first. We beat Amazon to space, right? Because if they're both going to be competing in commercial space flight, well, it's good to have your brand being like the first commercial space flight, like the first one to do it.
And I feel like besides all of this, some of like the most important things that I see here coming about this is this new type of shoe coming out in the market. Those look pretty stylish. I feel like blue is really my color, and I could totally pull these off.
This is I love the blue shoe.
I love the shoes on these guys. I mean, blue and gold, you cannot mess with those colors. Those are some solid outfits, and if they
look at our channel, blue and gold.
And so, out of all this, yes, billionaires race to the sky, but please release these, shoes to the public. I feel like this is something that I could pull off going to church or something, and like, we could all just be happy knowing that we've contributed to the space race. Thoughts and comments?
How did you contribute to the space race? By buying a pair of space shoes?
Dude, that's just the space race. You can't really question it.
I can question it.
I will
continue to question
it. One of those mysteries. You got dark matter, dark energy, space race,
and space boots.
And space boots.
So we have black holes. We break the speed of light. Cool blue space boots.
But you're right. Like
fusion.
The hard questions.
They're all about the same thing.
Yeah. The hard questions are, is this Nike? Is this Adidas?
Is,
or is this
China
Yeezy? Is this
easy?
Shoe? Is he the one coming out with these badass space shoes? I do not put it past Kanye West to look at this and be like, yo, they totally took this off my line. And like, go ahead and revolutionize this. And so the biggest news here is there are new shoes coming to markets near you. They're going to be space shoes. You can do cool things like moonwalk.
We can't confirm that. We can't confirm that. That's not confirmed. They do not go to Target looking for them.
Ask your local retailers.
You guys
go
have
into
shoes. I saw them on the Random Rabbit podcast. I'll show you the video. You guys can compare these?
Talking about Random Rabbit Podcast, guys, this right here is our YouTube channel. If you missed any part of podcast number 14, it's no longer going to show live. It's just going to show the regular podcast. Jump on there over the next 24 hours. We do split up the podcast so that they are individual podcasts or individual videos that you can then skim through yourself. We do go through specific topics. Just like right here, there's going to be crypto, live games. The ones that are most popular are finance marketing videos, finance videos covering everything deal with the stock market and how it's being affected. Guys, it's been a great show. I feel like we definitely covered a lot today.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing that I was going to say was Robinhood IPO shows stats under the hood, which is 18 million accounts, over $80 billion in total assets. This is a 151% increase from March 2020, and they're not listed yet, but they have a lot of revenue along with their cryptocurrencies, which their account rose to $11.6 billion from $481 million.
Goodness.
I still don't like them. Let's talk about stocks really
Fuck
quick.
those guys.
Michael Burry says Reddit fueled stocks could be in for a hit when new money dries up. That's true. A lot of these other stocks, I honestly don't think GME is a meme stock anymore. I like to call it how it is, an overly naked, shorted, fraudulent, manipulative stock that has been hit in the market. So yeah, scratch that meme stock.
Tell us how you really feel.
Logo from GME. AMC is another shorted stock. That's not a meme stock anymore, even though it's not as shorted as GME is. It is still a naked short. The media is going to try to sway you any which way, put propaganda out there. Just know that if you do your research, if you do your due diligence, you can actually find out that whatever the media is saying about GME and AMC is completely wrong. That's because they want to sway you and make sure you don't buy into it. But when have they ever wanted you to make money? No, they wanted you to lose money more than you make money.
Wait, but that assumes that makes a huge assumption that all of media, that makes a huge assumption that GME and AMC are the center of this giant fraud.
The center of this giant fraud is GME. Second place is AMC.
Right, but there's still meme stocks because the Reddit crowd is the ones who are investing in them.
And that's why there are other meme stocks like Clovis. There are other meme stocks that are out there that have been trying to get front and center. And that's what Michael Burry, I believe, is speaking about, that this meme Reddit-fueled stock frenzy is going to come to an end because guess what? Wall Street knows what is happening. They jumped on the coattails of these Redditors, and they're just like, hey, why don't we go with them? And they're going to think that it's going to keep going. Hey, we dip out right on top. We drive that stock down. It's pump and dumps for us, free money all day long. And they can take these rides and they're going to flush out the new money, sure. But
I think the new money is just not going to exist anymore. Think about as stimulus ends. Think about it as we go through the next 6 to 8 months, stimulus starts winding down, the Fed starts winding down, all these things start winding down. People just aren't going to have the same amount of money to make these trades, not to mention the new regulations anyway. What he was saying is that we could expect dot-com style or 2008 crashes, and by that it means price retractions, which I agree with, because I still don't think that anything is fundamental has changed to make GME worth $200. So when the rally stops and the price is correct, I do think the stocks will plummet, solely because if it's not being supported by a targeted rally, market participants will get to come back in and play it like normal. And I really think that the estimated prices for these stocks are much lower than they are right now. And I think the reason he calls them meme stocks is solely because Redditors trade them. I think that's what the accreditation of meme stock comes from.
I love these mainstream news outlets like Seeking Alpha. You want to know what their headline was? GameStop, ditch it. The short squeeze is over. Why are they telling us to get out of trades? They don't usually tell anyone to get out of trades. They usually tell people to get in trades. So
Right.
why
Seeking
is
Alpha
it?
doesn't have headlines. Seeking Alpha posts from a collection of individuals. So that means maybe somebody has an opinion, and I completely think that it's possible that somebody might. I've seen many opinions that say it's over, it's dead. I've seen many opinions that say
Yeah,
it's
a
never going to
lot.
end. I've seen opinions that say it's going to the
Barron's,
moon.
CNBC, all these guys are saying get out of GameStop. Wall Street just left, and they're putting all these propaganda titles in order to make sure people don't want to buy it.
Well, if what you said is true, that liquidity is drying up, right? This nonsense with the repo markets is occurring. If we're heading for
$741 billion today, by the way.
if we're heading for a liquidity crisis, if we are heading for that, then it is 100% accurate to say stocks in general will take a hit. Overvalued stocks that aren't supported by fundamentals will take the biggest hits, right?
Do you believe that even they will take the biggest hit even if they are highly shorted?
Absolutely. But you have to think about the people that are involved in these trades and the amount of money that there is to move around. If the market starts selling off, like you'd be surprised with a lot of, because remember, all the positions, retailers only make up 10% of the market, right? You're talking about big institutions that have to reallocate their funds. They have to change things around. If market conditions change, I think that, yes, all stocks are going to take a hit. And the quote unquote meme stocks are going to take huge hits, because when the market recalculates valuations and flushes everybody out, which is an important part of the market, by the way. Flushing people out of markets is an important part of how markets rebalance themselves. If markets can't rebalance themselves, that's a fundamental problem in and of itself, because the market can't be free. Because remember, even though the meme stocks, I agree, are fighting fraud, they're still being manipulated on the other side. There's still manipulation fighting manipulation, and then the industry has gotten involved. All the big firms are now pumping, dumping. So there's manipulation on manipulation on manipulation from anyone and everyone playing the stock. All of that is bad for markets because it doesn't let natural forces occur. It gets people playing the game, people fixing the game, people stopping the thing from being traded. So this will all come to an end eventually.
With these highly fraudulent stocks, once the market does go into a dip, I believe that these highly fraudulent stocks are going to see a run up. And that's only because the people who have highly shorted these stocks are going to not be able to meet collateral. And then they're going to have to push back in that money into those stocks, because guess what? There's still the market. They still need to pay up their fees and shore up their position.
Right.
So,
but all the banks and dealers have all that extra liquidity now.
Yeah. But
they can just give it to
afterwards, then it's going to take a hit. Yeah. This can't last forever. That's true. It's
that's what
like
Michael Burry's
the
saying. He's saying eventually
bubble, 2008. It's not going to last forever, though. Sentiment analysis is still going to be a huge proponent now coming on in the stock market.
Well, we will definitely see. We will definitely see.
Sounds good. Well, with that, off that note, that's Random Rabbit podcast number 14. Random Rabbit Jeremy, Random Rabbit Wyatt. As always, learned a lot from you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Gentlemen. And for anybody who showed up, all 1,000 of you guys, holy crap. Thank you so much. You guys are just like amazing. You guys are the real heroes. We have police officers, we have firefighters, and then we have you guys, the Random Rabbit fan club, and you guys are the real heroes who are keeping society going.
Anyone that's watching that may be a firefighter or policeman, please don't feel insulted that we just belittle.
And with that, guys, that is our show. Again, if you're looking for this podcast and you're looking to see additional videos or just recap on the videos that we went through, and if you have any question about GME, all the videos that are marked GME and Robinhood are very specific towards what's happening to that market. And so go ahead and jump on there. I guarantee you're going to learn things that you've probably never heard before. And with that, guys, thank you for joining me. Come back for our Random Rabbit Sunday Fun Day, where we go through and we just look at random rabbit holes. And you guys, as always, it's a pleasure. Make some wise investing choices. And you guys have a great, great night. Peace out. Happy 4th of July. Love you all. Independence, America.